Good afternoon, Rotarians, and welcome to the last meeting of the Edmond Rotary Club for June. This is June 30th, 2021. And we're going to begin today with our invocation and pledge by Andy Lester.
Would you please stand? Bow your heads. Please stand after I get up front with a microphone. And bow your heads. Father, thank you for this wonderful organization where we can get together with our friends and colleagues and so many people from around the world. Here locally, we gather with our close friends, and around the world with some we don't know yet, but who are all here for service above self. We thank you for the many blessings that we have, including this country and the freedoms that we have. We ask that you set this time apart. May everything that's said and done be said and done to your glory. Amen. And please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rotarians in service today. Andy Lester, our greeter, was Hunter Caudle, and Andy Conyers did our registrar, and Beth and Jessica, our Zoom masters. Just a quick note, we don't have a lot of announcements today. We do have My Rotary Stories. Keep them coming to Keith May. He is ready to keep filming those. And next week, we have the installation of the new board, so please see Allison if you haven't already to make a reservation for the special meal next week. And I have one quick announcement. The Edmond Chamber of Commerce announced last week our new Dancing with Stars, and we have yet another Rotarian, Krista Jones, who is going to be a Dancing with Stars.
I don't have my dollar out, but I am bringing the mirror ball back to you. And I want my Rotary Club to be just like a Democrat, vote early and vote often. and also, I'm going to do my James Kerr, that every dollar donated to the chamber, I will match with the dollar donation to the Edmond Public Schools. So, you know what that means. Get your money out, go online, it opens up tomorrow. I plan on taking an early meeting.
Thank you, Krista. So yes, if you go to the Edmond Chamber of Commerce, Dancing with Stars, you'll see where you can meet the dancers, click on it, and vote and pledge. So thank you so much. Also, we have a YouTube channel now. So for those of you that have the YouTube app, you can check all the meetings on there. If you don't have the app, just click on YouTube, go to the search bar, put Rotary Club of Edmond in there, and you can see my Rotary stories, the meetings, all kinds of extra information. So it's a way to do a makeup meeting if you miss one or want to see one again that so inspired you, and then just call and let Allison know, and that counts as for your perfect attendance. So with that, we have Mike Sanders today as our Sergeant of Arms.
Thank you, thank you. First, I'd like to welcome any guests we have today. I'll bring the microphone around for introductions. Okay.
I'm pleased to announce we have with us Logan Howard today. Logan is a recent graduate of Edmond North. She will be attending OSU, and she is a recipient of the H.W. Allman, I'm sorry, this is me rolling my eyes at Andy, whose pistol's firing over there. Anyway, she's one of the recipients of the H.W. Allman Scholarship through the West Oklahoma City Club and the Oklahoma City Community Foundation, and we are very pleased to have her with us today.
Welcome. Any other guests? It's my pleasure. I'd like to introduce, please stand up. This is Diana Rowland. Diana is the Edmond City or Edmond area president for Great Plains Bank, and she lives out in the formerly Fairfax neighborhood, and she's a visiting guest today, and I'm trying to talk her into considering membership. So welcome, Diana.
I'll start off with $2 already toward our winner. The only thing I ask is you dance and don't sing.
Thank you. Thanks. So that'll be Krista the Twista, right? I'd like to ask all of you to consider throwing $2 in the pot today. The first dollar will be a send-off for our last year, the year of COVID. For those of us that got through it unscathed, for those of us that had troubles and trials and tribulations, if you're happy the COVID year is behind us, please put out $1. The second dollar I'd like for you to give today is to celebrate Cindy's leadership during this last year. This, as you know, is the final day of our Rotary year, and I think Cindy's done a tremendous job of getting us through the transition and all the trials and tribulations. And as I mentioned, since this is the last day of the Rotary year, that also makes this New Year's Eve for Rotary, correct? And where I grew up, there was 2 traditions that were always around for New Year's Eve. One was the ball drop, and the other was the kiss at midnight. So I'm going to take care of the ball drop, and as far as the kiss at midnight, the Powers are here and the Turners are here. You have my authority and permission to do that. The rest of you are on your own, but I need some help. I got the ladder. Oh, it's a great one. That's all right. Thanks to Stroller, I'm well insured. All right, Bob and Martha, get together now. All right, help me out. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Thanks. And by the way, I'm passing the ball over to James Boggs. The ball's in your court.
Very well done. All right, thank you. That's one of a kind. One of a kind. I saw the Powers. Did the Turners do it as well? Okay, I missed the Turners. I might have to see that again. So without further ado, Beth is going to announce our esteemed speaker today. We're excited. Yes.
We have all sorts of technology involved, just bear with us. It makes it great for our folks on Zoom. Got to get my glasses on here so I can see. Good afternoon. Hi. It's a day, that's for sure. Founder, inventor, creator, developer. And I've already seen our speaker also has a great laugh and a great smile. Today we have the CEO of Utopia Genetics with us, Sharina Perry, and James. And James is here too. Very good. All of those words that describe Sharina, she is a serial entrepreneur, as you can see in your bulletin today, with a long history of starting and growing new ventures. As I read Sharina's bio and I look at all the things she does, and by the way, if you don't follow her on LinkedIn, you should, because I see you have interesting articles all the time. She's going to share with us today about Utopia Plastix. She's going to share her journey and being here in the city and being in Edmond and then being a big part of where we are going and the future of our community. As I introduce her too, I also think my dad was an engineer and he always said, there's got to be a way to do this better. There's got to be a way to make this easier. He was always thinking ahead and thinking outside the box. And Sharina reminds me of the way his brain worked, and I imagine yours does too. With that, welcome Sharina Perry.
Woo, she's taller than me. Thank you guys for having me. And first, Jessica and Beth are my assistants today. So if anything goes wrong, you don't get to blame them. They signed up, volunteered. First, as she mentioned, my name is Sharina Perry. And whenever I get the opportunity to be in front of a Rotary, I take it. And I'll tell you why. When I was 14, I moved to Oklahoma from New Mexico, and I lived in Norman. My dad we moved here on a job transfer. He worked for Texaco. I came from New Mexico as an extremely diverse area, and I moved to Norman, which was, I think, diversity probably really was very minimal. But my speech and debate teacher came to me and told me that she recommended that I compete and sign up for a contest. And it was a Rotary speech contest, four-way speech contest. And I tell this story because, one, at that time, the Norman Rotary was only a male organization, and there were no minorities in that. But I, this young teenage Black girl, represented part of their core values. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? I later went on to win a national oratory competition, which told about my experience of moving to Oklahoma and incorporated those 4 questions. And today, it really is part of the values that I live by. So I'll rewind a little bit of my journey. No, I don't have a background in chemistry. That's the #1 thing that I'm asked. I've been an entrepreneur since my 20s. I built my career in cable and internet. I was the first African-American woman to be a part of the Norman Chamber, a business owner. And I struggled with access to resources. So I promised myself when I had the opportunity, I would always make sure minorities have access to resources. And that has been a part of my journey. And today I serve on the Governor's Council for Minority Business Development, and recently accepted the invitation for the State Chamber to impact legislation as we move things forward in innovation and create a space on the Council of Advisors. But I've always been a community advocate, and I'm okay being the person behind the scenes, because I believe things are possible. So with that being said, what you're here to hear about is my journey to Utopia Plastix. What you won't see in the slides, and I'll share the beginning of the story, my career in cable and internet ended in 2017, but I was still in a space of being and having an opportunity to serve others and helping small businesses. Well, my nephew was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis 2, which is an incurable growth of tumors. My sister had traveled around the country. She had been in Boston, New York, trying to get treatment, and here we are in Dallas, 19 years old. The quality of his life had changed, and it was, what is the solution, you know? And so in tears, she said, Sharina, you have to find one. So I started studying what were treatments for neurofibromatosis. And I didn't see one, but I did see cannabis. And so I tell people, after studying and really understanding medicinal value, education turned my ignorance into advocacy. But along the journey of learning about the medicinal value of cannabis, I also learned about plants studies had been done for alternatives to petroleum, cotton, and wood. And that led me to where I'm at with Utopia. So part of everything that we see right now is around we hear the word sustainability. What does it mean? The business of how we view our natural resources. I'm going to take this off and walk around. How we view our natural resources, and why and how we built a sustainable ecosystem business model called Utopia. I will say, as a young girl, and I have teenage boys, I would never recommend moving or uprooting teenagers to a new environment. It's too much of a change. It's too much of a shift. At least for me, it was. And that's that area, that time in life. So I would see things and stuff didn't make sense. It was too new. But I would always draw out, and I built this community called My Utopia. And it was a way that I dealt with disparity, injustice, and I would draw out solutions. So when the time came for me to find a solution, I naturally called it Utopia. And so I built the Utopia companies. So we talk about what is sustainability. When the word came up, sustainability was really about our society, our environment, and then our economics. In the US, we adopted 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit. And that was, as we move forward, how are we impacting things? Well, we have traditionally, and this is really, as we see things moving forward, in the Midwest, we don't talk about this a lot, but it is a big deal in Europe. It's a big deal on the coast. It's a big deal in Canada right now. So you'll see, we talk about the supply chain, COVID, why things have happened, where this shift is. Well, I'll tell you, there is a huge shift if you follow anything with the World Economic Forum or anything happening outside, you'll understand really what I'm talking about. We have traditionally had this idea of what they call linear economics. And the linear economic model is kind of that we take our natural resources, we use them, and then we dispose of them. Well, it put us in the situation where we're at our carbon initiative, our planet, our overconsumption. It's really scary. So another type of model has been developed. It's called a circular economic model. And it's a cradle-to-cradle model where we take our natural resources, we make things, we use them, and then we reinsert them in a way, kind of like you using a straw or your cup, and then it turns into a park bench. So that is the key thing that Europe is focusing on right now. They're focusing on building recyclable infrastructures. So sustainable consumption, the use of products, services, materials, and energy in a way that has a minimal impact on the environment and society. The idea is use a specific product for as long as possible, extract as much value from the product or asset as possible, and then reuse that product, component, or material to produce new things. If you will hear it more often, the initiatives you see, if you are on LinkedIn and you follow any group, you follow any legislation, you follow any of the companies that are out there, no matter what industry, you will hear them talk about their initiatives. Most companies agreed under the UN's pact to follow the SDGs. They're 17-point systems, world corporations. Many of the corporations that operate and control a lot of what even happens in our state are a part of that initiative. So what that means is we're going to take resources, we're going to manufacture, we're going to make products, we're going to consume and use them, and they're going to turn to waste, and we're going to figure out how do we turn those into a resource again. So that led to this whole issue of sustainability, and this idea led to really the why of Utopia. The issue of sustainability, companies removing single-use plastics and initiatives to reduce carbon emissions led to a series of questions that have remained at my forefront and the forefront of our partners across the country. How do we solve this problem without creating another one? How do we make a global impact? How do we keep employees of manufacturers in jobs? How do we avoid having manufacturers spend large amounts of money modifying their equipment? How do we reduce carbon? How do we save marine life? How do we save the trees? How do we make consumers conscious without totally changing consumer habits? How do we use our most valuable resource, our land? And how do we help minority and disadvantaged farmers and landowners? How do we help the economy and local communities? How do we use my vision of a utopia to create a sustainable ecosystem? I ask all those questions because I believe we often take a very singular approach to solving problems. We look at the world and we say, hey, there's a problem, I'm gonna fix it. But we don't really pay attention to the end result. I'm going to give you an example. When companies like Starbucks, McDonald's started announcing that they were doing away with single-use plastic like straws, they moved to paper, okay? Paper at that time occupied 1% of the straw space. It was anticipated that it would move to 25 to 50%. How did we get paper straws? From trees. So what did that mean? We'd cut down trees. Now what do we affect? Our carbon issue, because we're cutting down the thing that absorbs our carbon. So we're creating more problems. But we also experienced it in our lumber industry recently. The shortages. People didn't think about now that we moved to more paper goods, paper packaging on a global front, that those people that were lumber producers, that there would be shortages for other industries. So every one of the questions that you see up here remained in our forefront, and we built Utopia by answering them, by not creating more problems as we solved them. And so therefore, I built what was called my Utopia model. And it's a circular ecosystem. It starts with farming, processing, manufacturing, and distribution. And so in our Utopia model, I built 3 companies. The first one was Eden Grow. Eden Grow is the farming side of our model. The environmental benefits of the crops that we use to make Utopia Plastix, the crops absorb CO2 from the atmosphere more than any other crop. About 1 to 5 tons of CO2 is needed for production of 1 ton of dry matter. Every hectare consumes 30 to 40 tons of CO2 for each growing. During a single growing cycle, which you can grow our crops twice a year, each acre or hectare consumes the amount of CO2 that exhausts from 20 cars in a year. No chemical pest control is needed. Neither toxic nor synthetic products should be applied during our growing cycle, hence truly benefiting the ecosystem. The crops remove toxic elements such as heavy metals from the soil, and the industrial products made with Utopia Plastix can be recycled. This is a very important aspect for the automotive and construction industry. Crops can also be applied as soil remediation. The second part is Utopia Solutions. This part of our model handles the processing and to manufacturing to our compounded resins. The role is decortication, milling, blending, pulping, and drying. You see in the center photo, that's Mitch McConnell. Inside the facility, this is a facility that I purchased or acquired the assets of in Louisville, Kentucky. It was one of the key facilities. Louisville, Kentucky is known for its use of agriculture and industrial uses. Unfortunately, here in Oklahoma, that infrastructure, those types of infrastructures did not exist. So for me to build what I needed to do, I had to go outside of Oklahoma, but I'm happy to announce we are planning to open a processing facility in Oklahoma in September. But the pen that Mitch McConnell used to sign the Farm Bill 2018 was made from material produced in our Louisville facility. Within Utopia Plastix, we are biodegradable, 100% recyclable. We are the only 100% recyclable polymer in the world currently. And we are reusable and compostable. We are compounded currently for commercial distribution, and you can use our resins in any petroleum application that you would use for instance, a polypropylene or a polyethylene. Some of the benefits companies have experienced when using our resin is stronger properties. OSU, their labs just tested it for a 0 water vapor transfer rate, as well as fire resistance properties. What you see in the upper left corner is our recycled material, 100%. In the lower left corner, you'll see the resin that was used to produce the straws that are on your table. In the lower right, that resin was used to produce the bags that are on your table. And in the upper right corner, that is a master batch that we created. I didn't come in this industry to beat up on plastic, petroleum. We really came to be a solution. So you can add our master batch to traditional petroleum, neutralize the carbon, and make them eco-friendly. I can also turn a non-recyclable petroleum resin into 100% recyclable resin. So what you see in the upper left corner is those straws were produced at the request of a major food chain that uses red straws that has a chicken as a logo. So in the other, right below it is the bags. Those are made, you'll see some of those on your table. I encourage you, if you have a white bag on your table, to hold it up to the light and you'll see the plant material. Also cutlery. So when we did this, we really wanted to prove. I didn't hire any manufacturers. What I did was I solicited manufacturers across the country. And I said, I'm going to send you resin, and I want you to run it exactly as you run it right now. And then I want you to report back to me. So I traveled. I had straws made in Texas, cutlery made in Alabama, the pharmaceutical containers made in Oregon, bags were made in Oklahoma City at Polyfilms. In the lower right corner, you'll see also Representative Burns. He was seeking for the last 2 years a sustainable material for an invention that he has in the works, and we were able to get that done for him through OCAS. Currently, we're working with 7 local Oklahoma entrepreneurs to use our material to position them for inventions and development, and we're using local manufacturers to accomplish it. Team Utopia, again, we don't create problems as we solve them. One of our team members who's not listed here is sitting in the audience as well, James. So James is more than just James. But we have a team of diverse individuals that work together that make what we do possible. And we have software engineers, chemists, franchisee owners, branding, from oil and gas, marketing, general connecting, banking, attorney, CFOs. We have a wide variety of people on our team. And so we encourage to join us on this journey to Utopia, because every time someone enrolls or signs up to purchase our resin, a farmer wins. And when a farmer wins, a local community wins. And when a local community wins, that means commerce. And so when we start looking at how do we take a approach, more than, as me as a company, I could have just done this, created all the products, but our goal was never to replace manufacturing. Our goal was to really, how do we create a solution? And that has remained at our forefront. So I'm now ready for any questions. Yes.
I assume you have a bunch of patents.
When I was able, Dunlap and Cotting is who I went to when I went to file. I do have a national patent. I just received notice of my publishing of my application for my PCT patent, which is my international patent. I also have trademarks that have been issued for Utopia, for our logo, and Utopia Plastix has fully been defined as the use of plant material in petroleum applications. I have a very broad patent. There's a couple of things that Dunlap Cotting told me when they wrote our patent. It's probably the best one they've ever written. They've never seen anybody be able to get this broad of a patent, and I put the big boys to shame.
You know, there are Rotarians down there.
I did not know that, but that would not surprise me. Any other questions? Yes.
On the plastics that you can make recyclable, are they any particular numbers?
So any of the resins that we have are 100% recyclable, or the ones that we can make recyclable, polyethylene and polypropylene, and it's no restrictions. Polyethylene is going to be traditionally used in anything from your film to your bag. It may be, I don't believe, some may use it in some type of, I know it's used in blow molding, not necessarily in thermoforming, but then polypropylene used in your injection mold. Any of it, we can make it fully sustainable.
How does it cost in comparison with the
So our cost is higher than your petroleum plastics, but I will tell you, we don't have to market. When coming into in a business model where you're creating a solution, one, we don't ever have the conversation with any of these companies about how do we compare to petroleum. What they want to know is, if I come and I say I'm removing petroleum, they decided they were removing petroleum. So the only thing I have to be is competitive to the other alternatives in the market. And the best part is we're highly competitive and we offer the most benefits in our material. Hence why a lot of companies. Recently, I had the largest pharmaceutical container producer. The president reached out to me, and they've been working with a member of our team for about 8 months. And he made it clear that he asked for the meeting. He moved into the president position, and this is a global company. And he said, I can't believe we sat on this. And they've advanced it. He said, it's now the top of our priority list. Sustainability is a key focus for global companies. There's another key focus for global companies and makes it a great advantage for me being in Oklahoma. the initiatives to diversify the supply chain. As an African-American woman, I'm the only African-American woman in the space of polymers in the world. So if I'm a plastics producer and I need to diversify my supply chain, I'm key. Now, a lot of times people would think, well, that's kind of, Well, let me tell you what that does. By me being in that position, I open up opportunities for other manufacturers and companies in Oklahoma because I'm a resin provider. So when we go to produce products for these companies, that opportunity is created for them. And so I really feel like the importance of us really breaking down some barriers and understanding how we work together to create solutions and that we can really solve and get done what we need to get done.
You generate carbon credits?
We are definitely, carbon credits are fully, and we have a zero waste because our material is 100% recyclable and it's all clean. So, excuse me?
Do you sell?
Do we sell so right now, one of the, we just moved into doing the carbon, and so we're working with the Secretary of Energy and Environment, and we have a substantial amount of carbon credits that will be available for what we do. Our goal is to really, how do we make sure the farmer wins in our model, and that's at the forefront of everything. So many models have not had the farmer winning. Eat and Grow is a zero profit company because everything in it goes to the farmer.
They would have thrown in there, we were recycling center know what to do with the different material versus plastic.
It doesn't disrupt the recycle stream in any way because it can be added to any of the petroleums.
So I love the focus on subsidiary and farmers. However, you use this word utopia, and each of it has some funky historical connotations trying to utopia. So what's the long-term goal, and how do you reconcile this individuals to small communities approach with utopia, which has throughout history been used as a sledgehammer to beat people down through?
Well, utopia was never an idea, and I'm not for sure that I'm familiar with that ideology of a utopia. Utopia for me was always people working together with a focus on community. A lot of times you would hear it as an ideal type of society for people to get to. And so in this model, I created what I believe utopia to be. And so far, a lot of the I don't have any companies that challenge it. They actually really like it. So, yes.
Curious, how do you structure your day for each month to make sure you're building in time for innovation, rather than just the day-to-day of doing stuff, taking tasks?
One is a great team. So it's positioning also. So in the structure of our companies, Eat and Grow is the farming. Utopia Solutions is the processing and manufacturing, but that's also the discoveries. I've now been able to discover different applications for our material. Currently, I operate in the CEO position for Utopia Genetics, which is our distribution leg of our model, but that's not the long-term goal for me. My goal is to settle back into Utopia Solutions and to continue to come up with innovative ways to use agricultural crops like these in solving. And so far, we've been able to do it, and we're in the building materials space, in aerospace. We've been able to do it also in agriculture. We just, on a fluke deal, we produced some film to make the bags that you see on your table. And when we produced the film, there was some moisture in it. So that roll of film wasn't any good. Well, there were some local farmers who are in regenerative agriculture that have been servicing the northeast side of Oklahoma City that's been a food desert. And so they've been providing local produce. Well, they were having a shortage of cardboard boxes. So when they came to me, I said, well, let's go ahead and use the film. Well, fast forward to today, they've grown more crops than they ever have. They have no weeds and they have no pests, and they have a greater yield. The crops are healthier, they're happier. They've been tracking the data. Now it's been right at about 60 days. They now provide produce for homeland and also to the new market that came to the northeast side of Oklahoma City.
You talked about the circular system. A big part of that, of course, is recycling. But all you described are we're going to grow some crops and suck up the carbon, we're going to make some residue. Do you have or plan to have some kind of recycling function yourself?
Well, so I myself do not. So one thing about the initiatives that happen, we're a resin provider, and our Utopia model is how do we get to the point where we distribute that resin. So when that resin goes in like I'll give you a name, Novalex, uses it for film. Novalex has some requirements, and even in your coastal states and other countries, we're able to move past regulations or legislation in that area because of our material. So even if in the recycle process, if ours ends up in a landfill, right? Let's say it ends up in a landfill on the top, the middle, or the bottom. Ours breaks down, and then you have natural bacteria and cellulose from crops that add nutrients in the ground. So the circular really is a soil to soil model, meaning that if it breaks down, the recyclability is just proof that now eventually you're only going to be able to recycle our material so long. It's cellulose. It's like recycling paper. You can do it 4 to 5 to 7 times. But as you do that, it's going to break down. The key is at the point that ours actually reaches end of life, the value that it adds in true sustainability, that it adds nutrients back in. Yes.
What crops do you use? Is it hemp? Let's get that.
So I will tell you, hemp is included in my patent. I was also the first to develop a paper straw made of hemp. That was part of my first discovery. I didn't share this story. I made the first prototype of a paper straw in my kitchen, and I used 100% hemp paper straw. I hired a company to make pulp, and then I hired another company to convert it into paper. And I had reached out to Hoffmaster, the largest global producer of paper straws, and asked them if I made the paper, would they turn it into straws and do the testing? Hoffmaster did that in 2019, and we produced it. Now, there were some issues, okay? When I got to producing that, 2018 Farm Bill passed. There are legislative barriers to the use of hemp, and a lot of people are producing hemp, but they're not thinking about the cannabinoid and the THC profile that will not pass FDA regulations for use in food-based products or in food distributed products. For instance, the FDA told me, I want you to explain to me that it is okay to tell a mom of a 5-month-old it's okay to suck out of this straw, basically. There's no THC, there's no cannabinoids in it. I couldn't do that without a significant amount of investment in clinical trials and full testing that was absolutely removed. So there are crops that have greater yields, stronger cores, fibers, and are less costly than hemp that can be used in a vast number of applications and have been used for thousands and thousands of years. The crops that we use, the USDA did feasibility studies on them, including Oklahoma was part of it. They did it in Lane, University of Oklahoma did it as an alternative to petroleum, cotton, and wood. They grew the crop in all 49 states. It grew very easy. So we use those crops today.
One particular, like one of these straws,
So that brings me to the term biodegradable. We see biodegradable on everything. The thing about our team and very intentional and challenging us was, how do we define that? So something can say biodegradable and it literally can be 900 years. But what we did was we put an additive into our material so the bag breaks down in 180 days, no matter where it ends up on a landfill, in a landfill. Our straw breaks down in 240 days, and that is a control. Now, companies in the petroleum space, and there was a lawsuit brought in Europe, companies, when petroleum companies, these bans started happening and biodegradable was the conversation, companies started adding these additives, but what was left behind was microplastics. And so that became a huge problem. It ended up in marine life. So the issue of plastics is what furthered the legislation against single-use plastics. And today, a company like Chick-fil-A has a challenge in Washington State. They have a challenge in California. They have bins in their facilities we don't have here. So they have a recycle bin, they have a compostable bin, and then they have your natural disposing bin. And so there's a cost in commercially composting with the alternatives that are out there. There's a cost in recycling, and I agree with you. The issue of recycling infrastructures, those don't exist, and it's part of why there's not a lot of conversation in the US around a lot of that, because we're so focused on just getting rid of it. Where in Europe, it's a very different conversation. They don't want trash. They don't want biodegradable. They don't want to see it. What they want is infrastructures in place. Nestle is leading the way in fully sustainability in these construction of these. You also see companies like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, General Mills. You'll see them moving to a lot of these models and investing in it. And I will say, when we talk about the supply chain as we've known it in the Midwest, I give people this example. You hear the announcements of Amazon moving to electric, okay? So let's say my history is in gas, it's in petroleum. Amazon has been a huge consumer of gasoline. The airlines have been a huge consumer of gasoline. So if they start shifting to different energy, and those have been my clients in the petroleum industry, guess what my focus is on as a supplier? How do I satisfy them? So that's where the new investments are. You'll see economic investment models. There's a lot of investment into these new sustainable eco solutions. And green, there are whole investment models and strategy for green innovation.
If you look past the food product side of the business, do you get back to industrial hemp being a feasible crop? I know Oklahoma spent some time in the last few years trying to make that happen. The processing side is where that. Do you plan on pushing back towards that in parts of the business that you can make that product?
So today, we're in the resin space, so we're not solely focused on the food, but I'll explain why probably not until some economics change. When you have the CBD market drove up the cost of seed and production, which makes it very difficult to be price competitive even as an alternative. While there's some great technology and development, that's part of the challenge. So I can buy, maybe it's $5 a seed. I can buy a pound for $5 with my other crops. And it doesn't make sense right now until the market changes or shifts to focus our energy in hemp when we can get the same results from these other crops.
May I ask how your nephew's doing?
So he currently uses cannabis. We are walking through FDA approval for my medications. It's a time thing, you know. I hope I'm able to reach all my goals and really get there and have some more assistance for some viable treatment to help. I'm hopeful, so. Any other questions? Are we out of time? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sharina. Just a couple things. I know we're kind of at the end of time today. Did Brett leave already? He did leave. Okay. It is his last day today, so we just keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Okay, so we've got some folks on Zoom. We might want to turn that camera around. We've got Carol Wright, Bill Moyer, Chris Berry, Barry Bell, David Finley, Ray Hibbert, Christine Meredith, Victoria Caldwell, Linda Banks, Kathy Reeser, Peggy Guide, Dan Chavez, and Becky Dehart. Let's give them a big wave and a happy 4th of July. Speaking of 4th of July, please have a safe one if you're traveling this next couple of days. Next week, we have the installation of the new board officers, so we will see you then, and go Krista. Thank you, see you then. Oh, I'm sorry, we have drawing. My goodness, forgot the drawing. Okay. So I'm gonna pick a ticket. And the last four are 3266.
3266.
3266, Lewis. His first meeting back. Yeah. All right, you're looking for the Ace of Hearts. I believe you.
I can get out of here. No.
Nope. So, peanut or plain?
Oh, I'm a plane.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. And Sharina, we need you to sign a book at the front. Oh, you did already? Okay, great.
Thank you.
That was amazing. Amazing. You are amazing. What a great, and just to do it in such a short amount of time. It's just